everything that's happened in the last couple weeks across the world, really, which is crazy to think about. And to put this in perspective, I saw this from Tech Radar. I wanted to pull this up. In the last 7 days, the UK has introduced age checks for minors online. Australia has blocked YouTube and other social networks. And now YouTube is rolling out AI age checks in the US, right? This is just in the last 7 days or so. And this has been an ongoing thing. A lot of it started with this collective shout story that this group of Australian Karens who are putting pressure on the payment processors, and then that trickles down across everywhere else. It's a mess when it comes to all this stuff. Now, just Brew, you are in the UK, and you can't say anything too bad about daddy government because they may come for you. So I don't want to put you in a bad situation. But apparently they have these new age restrictions when it comes to certain things. Can you talk a little about that first and foremost? What exactly is this?
Well, it was weird at first how it went off around the world because a lot of stuff is like UK doing UK things. Then it turned out everyone had been doing these things. There's laws in America being lined up, and we've already spoken about how companies are really slow. Government's worse, and so all of this has been in the running for a long, long time. I think Europe's getting it in a year's time, which is why they're already getting pre-censored because some companies turned it on immediately. But it's such a weird law because you have to verify your age, whatever it is, when really you'd think it'd just be if you had a child in the home or something. That way, you're only trying to verify the actual people. But everyone's got to do it, but it's not illegal to evade the law because you have that legal access to the content anyway. So this isn't even going to affect anybody that is remotely technologically savvy because it hasn't bothered me in the least. Any way to get around it, I already knew how to do, already had on my computer kind of thing. And so one of the strangest things we had, there was an MP which did a interview, and what he said just didn't make any sense. It was verify we've done this for child safety, which is nonsense because if you were doing it for child safety, you wouldn't be importing people attacking children. So obviously nonsense. But he said, we're doing it for child safety. Verifying your age protects a child. And so if you evade the ID protection, you are endangering a child. That makes literally no sense. If I use a VPN to get around content, to stuff I'm legally allowed to see, there's not even a child involved in that interaction. And it's just, again, it's guilt tripping you. It's making you feel like a bad person to make you surrender and do what you want. And what happened almost immediately was a list came out of things that they actually were banning. And it wasn't kids accessing adult content. It was things like you can't talk about immigration or illegal immigration. You're allowed to see this. You're not allowed to see this. And so immediately that started getting centered on X, other social media platforms. And it basically stopped speech about it because their idea is talking about this creates the problem. You have people that live in reality and people that live in their own perceptual reality. And they think that perception controls reality. So if we stop people talking about a problem, it literally ceases to exist. The kind of low IQ people you're dealing with. And you end up with that spreading around because lots of people value safety and harm avoidance. And rather than, I would rather guilty people go free than innocent people be persecuted. Now it's the other way around. Now, no, we got to lock people down, put them in padded rooms. Nobody's allowed to do anything. And there is one place. You are the safest you'll ever be in the entire world. And that is in prison, in a cell, where no one can access you. That's what everything will come down to if you value safety, that kind of degree. Well, it was interesting that it immediately cut off speech. Oh, we also have in this country, they've just passed voting age down to 16. But you can't see information until you're 18. And so you're now voting on things happening in the world that really genuinely affect your country that you are not legally allowed to know about because you can't pass the ID check.
What the hell's happening there? Like,
I would have thought you could put two and two together with that one, because it's always been the case that if you go through the entire education system, so there's an evolutionary thing where children believe authority figures, because all the people that were told fire is hot and didn't just take it as fact died because they ran into fires. So every child believes what they're told. And this is why, if you go through the education system, you get told things, nobody thinks about that stuff. Well, very few people think about that stuff. They believe that power corrupts absolutely. No one's really thought about that. We're all equal, are we? It takes 3 seconds to think about to realize that's not true. And so if you have that for 16 years with no counter information and then you'll vote whichever way you got told.
Right. Right. Man, I can't even, the whole 16 voting thing seems like the worst idea you could possibly have. I'm up for raising the voting age until 35 here in the United States. It's crazy, man.
I'm up for entirely like reducing the amount of people that can vote dramatically.
Yeah.
I don't have kids. I wouldn't even mind if it was just you've got to have kids and be married. Like you've got to have a stable family. You've got to own a house.
Like that, yeah.
I'm up for drastic. At the very, very least, net taxpayer, because you shouldn't be allowed to vote yourself other people's money. There's loads of ways you can do it, and you just decide between them. But I am not for just everybody gets equal access to everything, because they're not equal. They don't have equal information. Why would they? They don't have equal investment in the nation.
Right. Well, anyways, people are finding ways around some of these little barriers that have been put up by the UK, and people are using Gary's mod to get past some of the age restrictions here. This is earlier this week. Users had success using Norman Reedus's face from Death Stranding. Here we go. This is kind of what happened here. You got to go in and verify your age. Does this look familiar to you, by the way? Sorry. Does this look familiar to you at all, Disparu?
No.
Have you done this yet?
No, because I wouldn't. I hit one of these things. I'm like, no, I don't need Discord this much. So it's
Right.
like, I would install TeamSpeak and go back to IRC before I'd do any of this kind of thing. And I think that's what will happen if you because all these are new programs which have sprung up in the last few years. No one's that attached to them. They all use stuff beforehand that wasn't locked down. They could all host themselves. I could see just like a regression back away, like a decentralization of everything again.
You see, by the way, you see how this is working? This is really bizarre to see, this face scan here. Go in, you can see them just using this. This is really funny. This is not Norman Reedus. No, this is not. But earlier this week they did. They're using Gary's mods right here. And I love that at the end here it says, estimating your age right here. That is messed up. That is silly messed up. I'm not into this idea at all.
There are other things they can use, which might be why I've not really hit age verification stuff. For instance, if your email is over 10 years, they deem they're probably over 18. If your account's over 10 years, you're probably over 18. And I've been on the internet long enough that I pass that kind of stuff. But they could easily, and you have like waves of stuff. So they get this in, everybody does it at the same time. There's all this uproar, and then it goes away, and everyone gets used to it. And so the next thing with this will just be, we'll use your iPhone cameras or your mobile cameras, and they know if you're a real person or a picture. They have depth perception, so they can definitely make this worse over time.
Well, they're going to need to make it worse for this guy, as apparently this is not working for him. Britain's most tattooed man says he's unable to bypass UK's new age check system due to his face being mistaken for a mask.
I'm okay with this guy not being on the internet. I've got to be honest. It's like, I think this guy's been on the internet too much as it is.
I think he should sue. Yeah,
and
for
then this
segregation.
All it takes is one lawsuit from a guy like this, or someone who like gets mistaken for an NPC and then sues for that this shit goes away. I say sue.
Yeah.
It won't. They'll just go, well, you can message our support. It's too costly for them. So because there was various different things. What was it? The NVIDIA app. You need to ID on the NVIDIA app to control your drivers. Now that's not adult
minority.
content.
I bet you a minority could sue, and then and get something changed.
No, because they'd be suing the company, not the government, and the government wouldn't care because the government wants this through. So you end up with people inputting stuff just so they can say they do it, so they don't get fined 10% of their global revenue. So other people are doing it that don't need to, just because they don't want to risk getting fined 10%. And all of this stuff is, if you get your age wrong, message our support, we'll deal with you. It's like, for a while over here, you had to allow everyone into your store, but as long as you had people that would lift a wheelchair into the store, you got around it, kind of thing. They just need a backup.
Do you guys see what's happening? Because we look at what's happening over in the UK, and we're like that's crazy. Just kind of the culture. Like, we're seeing a culture shift here in the United States, generally a net positive. And we look from the outside looking in, it looks like there's a drastic cultural shift and an erosion of pretty much free speech over there. I mean, is that a common talking point over in the UK right now? Because it looks really bad from across the pond.
It's a common talking point, but you do hit a point where it's like, or what? Because if every single person that you can vote for all agrees on the same thing and all wants to implement it, and no one wants to change the problem, people have been voting against everything that's been happening for 18 years or something at this point. It's got to be a long time, and it's just always continued to go the same way. They say they'll do one thing, they do the other, and it just keeps marching on. And so you can vote for bad or the same. I hit a point a long time ago where I think that you just have to, well, if other people are moving around the world, if you don't like where you are, move. And that seems to be the Americans' answer. Well, if you don't like your state, go to a different state. Well, in Europe, that's kind of similar. Obviously, we don't have access to the freedom of movement thing now, but that's technically the same thing. You can just move between nations, and they're about the size of the state with the population of states. So it's actually a very similar setup. It's just over here, more people agree, more governments agree with that kind of direction. And I think actually this stuff came into your country first. There was various different states put in age verification. They just didn't add extras to the list. But this always happens. People incrementally make everything worse. Like, oh, actually, that's useful. Which is why you always deny the first thing.
Right. Cut it off. The slippery slope. Very real. Yeah.
It's weird that was ever denied as a fallacy because it's common sense. But again, it's something people are told is wrong in school, never think about it, and just repeat it forever.
What a mess. What a mess. It seems like the age checks are a real thing, and it's making its way over to video games here, apparently. As jokes aside, Rockstar is apparently planning to implement age assurance checks in the near future, rolling them out by region for GTA Online. It says you may need to verify your age to access GTA Online or certain features like phone messages, text chat, Snapmatic. They may be restricted until you verify your age right here. So, yes, it is making its way over to video games. Talk about like the slippery slope. This really, when it comes to like adult games or mature games, let's rewind. This started 30 years ago with Mortal Kombat and Fatalities and Night Trap for the Sega CD, where those games were, too realistic, and they're going to encourage violence, and Doom is bad. And, so they're going to implement a rating system, and now the rating system isn't good enough. It's not good enough to trust the parents. You have to verify your age now with these platforms. So, and by the way, you're opening up an entire can of worms here when you have to verify yourself, whether it's through your face, through your ID, all that information, just like we saw from the T app recently. That's all stored somewhere. It's not just disappeared. And there will be hackers. If GTA, one of the most popular franchises in video game history, goes out there and has data on 50 million users, there's going to be a line of hackers ready there, just working their ass off, trying to get everybody's information and sell it to the highest bidder.
Can I put a tinfoil hat on for one quick second?
Please.
I'm not even necessarily believing this, but doesn't it kind of, because everything always seems so orchestrated and it all just comes in one fell swoop. This almost feels like, at least I'll speak on behalf of like America here, is that, you figure there's Christians tend to be more on the right, at least in my head. And it's almost like, well, how do we re-strategize here and get the right to love daddy government? Well, we'll hit on censorship, sexual stuff, violence, things that like the Christian right would be like, you know what, I'm actually for this kind of censorship, or I'm okay with providing this. It almost feels like a different strategy. I don't know if that's way crazy. Craig, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think
it's the same instinct on both sides. So you generally have people in two groups. They either value hierarchy, where you get what you deserve, or safety and equality, where everyone's the same, they all need to be safe. So, because hierarchy, obviously, to be the best, you've got to take risks, so that involves danger as it is. But safety and harm avoidance, safety and equality is a different instinct. And so you'll find people with both instincts. Okay, well, you find people on both sides. Hierarchy tends to just be one side, because the side likes redistributionist and everything, so it's antithetical to it. But yeah, you will have the sort of especially Christianity, is very, we should share everything and everything. So that's a natural inclination built into it that then leads into seeing everyone as kind of a child that you need to protect from themselves. We need to show them the way. It's like a very common Christian attitude, and that leads to this. So you'll always have the puritanical instinct.
Well, I'll tell you this. We've seen this this trickle-down effect really happen very fast. I wouldn't even say it's a trickle-down effect. It's been a avalanche here in the last couple weeks, and generally you see, this is something that, a lot of people point the finger and they say, oh, it's those chuds who only want to play adult sexy games and they're doing it for the kids and it's all guys around there. But that's not the case, as even The Gamer, which is incredibly progressive, is pointing out this here. It says adult games are only the beginning. Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row are reportedly at risk of being delisted by payment processors. And this goes back to the payment processing thing here, which is just an absolute mess. We talked about the collective shout and then putting pressure on these folks. So the idea of GTA and Saints Row possibly being delisted is like, wow. That's the fact that it's even gotten to that point, even in discussion, is ridiculous.
I have seen more leftist people also arguing against it, but they're arguing because you're censoring like LGB kind of games.
It's because sex is involved. That's why.
Yeah, it's like, well, I don't want you censoring, but don't censor us. And so it seems that they're on the same side, but not exactly. They would be more than happy for some things to get banned. The weird thing with games is because they've already had an ESRB thing, you used to get ID checks at stores, at retail stores. There's no reason that Steam couldn't do that and you just pay with a credit card. I have no problem with Steam having my credit card information, but that should be enough. I think the way everyone wants you to give an ID rather than just alternative things like credit cards is, I do think it's like an overarching profile of where you've been, what you're doing, what you're interested in, which is just as useful to advertisers and private companies as it is, any government.
YouTube said you should watch this video right here. And as we all know, you should do what YouTube tells you to do.